Hello, we are Ami, Ariadna, Marina, and me, Gisela, and today we're going to present a university project that we have recently done. This project is called Slarp, which means Second Language Acquisition Research Project. In this project, we analyzed the oral production of two different English learners. We really enjoyed doing it, so we hope you like it as well.
Our first participant is a 22 years old girl whose name is Berta. Her L1 is Catalan, which is the language that she speaks in her daily life. But we could consider that Spanish is her second L1 as well, because she learned it at the same time as Catalan. She started learning English at the age of 8, and up to the present time she has been in contact with this language in many different contexts, but mainly school lessons and a language school. In fact, nowadays she's still attending a language school. Also, she always tries to look for other activities, extra activities, in order to keep this contact with English, the target language. So as you can see, she shows interest towards learning this language, and in fact, she has the aptitude to do so.
Okay, and our second participant is Daniel, who is a 9-year-old boy who lives in Mataró, near Barcelona. He speaks Catalan and Spanish at home, and he does the same at school. So as he learned both Catalan and Spanish at the same time, we consider him as bilingual, as Catalan and Spanish are considered his L1s. He is very interested in English and in everything that has to do with it. So he listens to English music, he watches English films, and he also uses English to communicate with some English friends, and that which makes it even more meaningful for him. He started learning English at school and in a language center when he was 3, and that means that he has been learning English for 6 years now, and he is very motivated and willing to learn more and more every day, and he also has the aptitude to do so.
Alright, as for the method that we follow to carry out this second language acquisition research project, the first step consisted on recording looking for our participants, and then recording them while explaining the picture narrative that we showed to them. And then we did the transcription. The only instruction that they received was to explain the picture narrative so that we wouldn't influence the results. The second step consisted on analyzing the data obtained, and to do so we created some charts and tables in order to look in an accurate way into the different bits or levels of English. And then the third step consisted on writing our report, in which we included our main or the most relevant findings.
Okay, now we are going to do a little sneak peek regarding the language areas and how our participants develop them. When it comes to phonology, we must say that the speakers have a good pronunciation, even though that they make some errors that we think that are due to the fact that they are learning the language. When we talk about semantics, we must say that the vocabulary used is very basic and simple, and the subjects don't look for synonyms during their speech. As for pragmatics, they do a lot of pauses, they kind of feel insecure about the speeches and try to self-correct themselves very often. And now I'm going to talk about the interlingual causes or reasons of these errors. First, we have avoidance. Our speakers avoid using complex structures and then do a lot of simplifications when they try to simplify their messages as much as possible. Then we can identify an overgeneralization when they apply the present simple tense without making this distinction when it comes to the third person of singular. So they have overgeneralized the tense without taking into account the rule that affects the third person of singular. And we think that there has been some kind of fossilization because even though that they are aware of this rule or this detail of the ending s, they don't always apply it. And to finish with this section, When it comes to morphology and syntax, we must say that the adult presents errors of omission and misinformation, while the child presents errors of omission, misinformation, misordering, and addition. After gathering all the information obtained, we wanted to share with you our conclusions. First, we must take into account that there are some differences and similarities when it comes to the other oral productions in English of our participants. In this case, the main difference is the number of years of exposure to a language and the starting age they began to interact with it. As Ellis says, these factors affect the level of success someone has over a language. This theory would explain why we have noticed that our participants have pretty different English levels. What these participants do have in common is this intrinsic motivation and positive attitude towards learning English. Now, we would like to tell you and ask you if you can recall the two types of language abilities that Cummins exposed. If you remember, there were BICS, which were basic interpersonal communicative skills, and then CALP, communicative academic language proficiency. The activity we proposed, the experiment, was based on the BICS, so because it was more informal, the context was more colloquial. However, as our students or our subjects are more used to CALP, as these are the kind of language abilities that are developed at schools, we think that they made more errors just because they were not used to the context they were interacting in.
According to the ideas and the information that Ariadna has explained, I would like to highlight that as most of the errors are morphological, they give us some information on the stage of L2 development in which our participants are as regards to the other acquisition of the morphemes. And as question ensures, the order of acquisition of morphemes in adults is the same one as for children, but they are grouped in 4 levels of difficulty. And in our study, we have identified that in both cases, the first 5 stages, which are the articles, the copulative V, the ing, the plurals, and the auxiliary V, are already simulated. And as for the following stages, in fact, we have no data to say if they pass them or not, except from the last one, which is the third person in present simple tense, the final S. And we have to say that this is a common error that both of our participants make, and in fact it's more repeated along the adult's speech. And in addition, according to Lightburn and Spada, the L1 always has an influence in the acquisition of L2, the second language. And this is the case of interlingual. So we consider that the speakers, our participants, tend to be influenced by their mother tongue, which in this case is Catalan. And in our study, we have observed that the learners unconsciously learn the new target language by finding some similarities and differences with their mother tongue. And maybe this will explain why our speakers don't always apply the rule of the additional S, because in Catalan it doesn't exist. And well, we have identified that in fact the child is more likely to suffer this influence of the mother tongue, and maybe the adult is more able to avoid its presence because we assume that she has been more exposed to English, so she has more strategies to when producing English and when interacting in this language.